Hey there, have you ever come across a creepy story that you just can't seem to forget? This one might be based on a true event, or maybe it's just a fabrication. The locals have their own eerie tales to tell, and today I'm sharing one that will give you chills. Before we dive in, this is a reminder to everyone, friends, family, and this amazing community, to help us grow by hitting that like button and subscribing to the channel. Get ready for some spine-chilling stories, some slick twists, and so much more. Oh, and don't forget to turn on the notification bell. You won't want to miss what's coming next. Now let's start our story. The Light Road Incident, a chilling true story. On the night of March 19th, 1998, a cold front swept through the small town of Asheville, a rural, almost forgotten corner in northern Pennsylvania. The storm that followed was vicious. Wind howled through the valleys, and sheets of rain hammered the countryside, turning dirt roads into rivers of mud. It was the kind of night that made people lock their doors early, light a fire, and pray the power didn't go out. For two friends, Ethan Myers and Daniel Blake, it became a night they would never forget. Ethan and Daniel had grown up together, bonded by their shared love of the outdoors. That week, they had planned a short fishing trip up to Black Hollow Lake, a secluded spot about 15 miles outside town. The lake was surrounded by dense forest, and the only way to get there was via a narrow, winding road that locals called Light Road, a name that had nothing to do with illumination. And as they searched for him, he led them back to the lake. In fact, it was infamous for being pitch dark, with no street lights and thick tree canopies blocking out the moonlight. But to locals, Light Road carried a darker connotation. There were rumors, stories of strange occurrences, of people who ventured down the road and came back different, or never came back at all. Ethan didn't believe in those stories. Daniel, however, had always been uneasy about Light Road. As they loaded their fishing gear into Ethan's old pickup truck that evening, Daniel hesitated. "The storm's getting worse," he said, glancing at the darkening sky. "Maybe we should call it off." Ethan rolled his eyes. "We'll be fine. The truck's solid, and it's not like we're staying overnight. A few hours, max. Come on, Danny. Don't wimp out now." Reluctantly, Daniel climbed into the passenger seat and the two set off. The rain was relentless, pounding against the windshield so hard that the wipers struggled to keep up. As they turned onto Light Road, Daniel's unease grew. The forest loomed on either side, the trees' branches clawing at the truck like skeletal fingers. The dirt road had turned into a muddy mess, and the truck's tires occasionally slipped, sending sprays of mud into the darkness. About halfway down the road, the engine sputtered. Then it stalled. Ethan cursed under his breath, turning the key in the ignition. The truck groaned but refused to start. "What the hell?" Ethan muttered. He popped the hood and grabbed a flashlight. "Stay here. I'll check it out." Daniel's stomach tightened as he watched Ethan step into the rain, the beam of the flashlight slicing through the dark. The wind howled louder, shaking the truck. And then, something else. A sound. Faint at first, but growing. It was high-pitched, almost like a whistle, but distorted. Daniel sat frozen, his breath fogging up the glass. Ethan returned a few minutes later, drenched and irritated. "Starter's shot. We're stuck." "What was that sound?" Daniel asked, his voice shaking. Ethan frowned. "What sound?" Before Daniel could respond, the sound came again, louder this time. A strange warbling whistle that seemed to echo from the trees. Both men fell silent, straining to hear. Then came the knocking. Rhythmic, deliberate, like someone, or something, was tapping on the truck's exterior. first on the roof, then the doors. Ethan swung the flashlight around, its beam darting through the rain. Nothing. It's probably just branches, Ethan said, though his voice lacked its usual confidence. Let's get out of the truck. Daniel grabbed his raincoat and reluctantly stepped out. The knocking stopped. For a moment, there was only the sound of the rain and the wind. Then, they heard it. Footsteps. Soft, squelching footsteps, moving through the mud, circling them. Ethan spun around, the flashlight shaking in his hand. "Who's there?" he shouted. No response. The beam of the flashlight landed on something, a figure, barely visible through the rain, standing about 20 feet away. It didn't move, just stood there, watching. Ethan's breath hitched. "Get back in the truck," he whispered. They scrambled inside, locking the doors. Ethan kept the flashlight trained on the figure, but when he blinked it was gone. Panic set in. "What the hell is going on?" Daniel whispered. "I don't know," Ethan replied, his voice cracking. "We'll wait it out until the storm lets up." Hours passed. The rain eventually eased, but the fear lingered. They stayed in the truck, neither daring to sleep. As dawn approached, they decided to make a break for it. The nearest house was about a mile back. They grabbed their rain gear and set off, keeping close to each other. The road was eerily quiet, the storm's aftermath leaving a heavy stillness in the air. About half a mile down they saw it, a house. An old, weathered building with peeling paint and a sagging porch. It wasn't the one they remembered passing earlier, but at that moment, they didn't care. They knocked on the door, desperate for help. An elderly man answered, his face creased with years of hardship. He invited them inside, offering towels and a place to sit. The inside of the house was cluttered but warm. A fire crackled in the hearth, and the man's wife brought them tea. For a moment, they felt safe. But then, Daniel noticed something. A painting on the wall. It was crude, almost childlike, depicting a long, dark road. Two figures stood on it, facing a glowing orb. His stomach turned. "What is that?" he asked, pointing at the painting. The old man's expression darkened. "You came from Light Road, didn't you?" Ethan nodded. The old man sighed. "You're lucky to be alive. Most don't make it out." He went on to explain that Light Road was cursed. Decades ago, a young girl had vanished there, and ever since, strange things had happened. People reported seeing figures, hearing unexplainable noises, and some simply disappeared. The couple's warning chilled them, but Ethan and Daniel didn't stay to hear more. They thanked the couple and left, eager to put as much distance between themselves and Light Road as possible. When they reached the main road, they flagged down a passing car, which took them back to town. Ethan and Daniel never returned to Light Road. They rarely spoke of that night, and when they did, it was always with unease. The truck was later towed, but the mechanic found nothing wrong with the starter. To this day, neither of them can explain what they experienced. The painting, the knocking, the figure in the rain, it all lingers, like a shadow on the edge of their memories. Light Road still exists, though few dare to travel it after dark. Locals say it's just an old wives' tale, a way to scare kids and keep them out of trouble. But every so often, someone goes missing. And those who return, they're never quite the same. This isn't the only case like this. Click here to dive deeper into more eerie stories. If this gave you chills, hit the like button, share it with a friend, and don't forget to subscribe for more stories that will keep you up at night. Turn on the notification bell so you never miss the next spine-tingling tale.